What if you're 55 and feel like you're already behind? What if retirement is getting closer, but your investments are only just beginning? Have you missed your chance? Or is it possible that the most important investing years are still ahead of you?
Quiet wealth, calm finance, better life.
There is one sentence that financial advisors hear more often than almost any other. I wish I had started sooner. Sometimes it comes from someone in their 40s, sometimes their 50s, sometimes their 70s. Different ages, different lives, different financial situations. Yet the feeling is remarkably similar. Regret. A quiet belief that an opportunity has already passed. A sense that if only they had started investing earlier, everything would be easier today. Perhaps you felt that way yourself. Maybe you spent years focused on raising children, supporting family, paying off debt, building a career, recovering from setbacks. Life happened, and investing remained something you planned to do later. Then one day, later arrived. Retirement suddenly seemed closer, and the numbers didn't look as large as you hoped. This moment can be emotionally difficult, because investing is one of the few areas of life where time matters so much. People hear stories about compound growth. They see charts showing what happens when someone starts at 25 instead of 55. And the comparison can feel discouraging, almost painful. But there is a problem with those comparisons. They focus entirely on the years that are gone and ignore the years that remain. The reality is that many people start investing later than they planned. The question isn't whether that is ideal. The question is, what happens next? Because while no one can change the past, everyone still has the ability to influence the future. And that is where today's conversation begins. Why people start late. One of the biggest misconceptions about late investors is the belief that they simply weren't responsible. That assumption is often unfair, because life is rarely that simple. Many people delay investing because other priorities consume their resources. Children need support. Parents need care. Mortgages require payments. Careers demand attention. Unexpected emergencies appear. Financial setbacks occur. Divorces happen. Businesses fail. Medical bills arrive. Life rarely unfolds according to a perfect financial plan. And when people look back years later, they often judge themselves too harshly. They compare their real lives to an imaginary version where every decision was perfect. But no one lives that life. Everyone faces trade-offs. Everyone encounters obstacles. Everyone carries responsibilities. The goal is not rewriting history. The goal is understanding where you are now. Because investing success does not belong exclusively to people who started young. It belongs to people who continue moving forward. Meet Linda. Let's imagine someone named Linda. Linda is 56 years old. For most of her life, investing wasn't her highest priority. Not because she didn't care, but because life demanded her attention elsewhere. She helped raise 2 children, supported aging parents, managed household expenses, worked consistently, paid bills, handled responsibilities. She contributed to retirement accounts occasionally, but never as aggressively as she intended. Now, at 56, she finally has room to focus on herself. Her children are independent, her finances are more stable, and for the first time, she begins asking serious questions about investing. But another feeling appears as well: regret.
She wonders how different things might look if she had started 20 years earlier. She imagines larger balances, greater flexibility, more options, and the comparison leaves her discouraged. Yet something important happens. Instead of giving up, Linda decides to begin. And that decision changes everything. Not because it erases the past, but because it changes the future. The dangerous power of financial regret. Regret can be useful. It can teach lessons, provide perspective, encourage better decisions. But regret can also become dangerous, especially when it creates paralysis. Many people become so focused on what they should have done that they stop focusing on what they can still do. This is particularly common among late investors. They see the gap between where they are and where they hoped to be, and that gap feels overwhelming. But investing is not improved by regret. Investing is improved by action. The market does not reward perfect timing. It rewards participation. The future does not care when you wish you had started. It only responds to what you do next. And that realization can be surprisingly liberating because it shifts attention away from the past toward possibility, toward progress, toward action. Why starting late is better than never starting. Imagine two people. Both are 55 years old. The first feels behind and decides it's too late. The second feels behind and decides to start anyway. Neither person can change the previous 30 years, but their next 10 years may look dramatically different. This is one of the most important truths in investing. Progress is not reserved for people who began early. Progress remains available to anyone willing to begin. Will a late investor achieve the same results as someone who started at 25? Sometimes no, but that's not the relevant comparison. The relevant comparison is between starting and not starting. And in that comparison, action almost always wins. Because investing is not about achieving perfection. It's about improving outcomes. Even small improvements compound over time. Even 10 years can matter enormously. Even 5 years can matter more than people realize. The future remains valuable, and every year still available deserves respect. The advantage many late investors overlook. Ironically, many late investors possess advantages younger investors do not. They often earn more. They often understand themselves better. They may have fewer financial obligations. They may have greater discipline. They may feel more motivated. A 25-year-old has time, but a 55-year-old often has clarity, and clarity can be powerful. Linda discovered this herself. At 25, she might not have stayed committed. At 56, she understood exactly why she was investing. She understood the importance of retirement, the value of financial independence, the consequences of inaction. Her motivation was stronger. Her discipline was greater. And those qualities helped her remain focused. Sometimes experience becomes an asset, not just in life, but in investing as well. What 10 years can still do? When people think about investing, they often focus on decades. 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. And understandably so. Much of what we hear about investing emphasizes the extraordinary power of time. The earlier you start, the more time compound growth has to work. That is true. But sometimes this focus creates an unintended consequence. People begin treating anything less than 30 years as insignificant. And that simply isn't true. Let's return to Linda. She's 56 years old. Retirement is approaching. She wishes she had started earlier. But she still has time ahead of her. Perhaps 10 years, perhaps 15, maybe even 20 years before she needs the full support of her investments. And even after retirement begins, those investments may continue working for decades. 10 years may not sound impressive compared to 30, but 10 years is not a short period of time. Think about your life 10 years ago. How much has changed? How many experiences have occurred? How many challenges have been overcome? How many opportunities appeared unexpectedly? A decade is a substantial period of time. Financially, it can be substantial as well. The problem is that regret often distorts perspective. People compare 10 years to 30 years, instead of comparing 10 years to doing nothing. And those are very different comparisons. The question isn't whether 10 years is ideal. The question is whether 10 years still matters. And for many people, the answer is absolutely yes. Every contribution matters. Every year matters. Every step forward matters. The future may be shorter than you once imagined, but it is still a future worth investing in.
The trap of trying to catch up too fast. One of the biggest dangers facing late investors isn't starting late, it's trying to make up for lost time too quickly. After realizing they are behind, some investors become desperate. They begin searching for shortcuts, the next hot stock, the next market prediction, the next opportunity that promises extraordinary returns. The thinking often sounds like this: I need to catch up. I don't have enough time. I need bigger returns. And while those feelings are understandable, they can be dangerous, because urgency often leads to poor decisions. Consider someone running a marathon. If they start far behind, their instinct may be to sprint, to push harder, to close the gap immediately. But marathons aren't won through panic. They're won through consistency. Investing works much the same way. The desire to catch up quickly often increases risk dramatically. People begin making decisions they would never have considered before. Speculation replaces planning. Emotion replaces discipline. Hope replaces strategy. Ironically, these decisions can make the situation worse, not better. Linda encountered this temptation herself. She saw stories of investors doubling their money, tripling their money, achieving extraordinary results. For a moment, she felt tempted. After all, wouldn't that solve everything? But then she realized something important. Her goal wasn't getting rich overnight. Her goal was improving her future, and those are not the same thing. The most effective response to a late start is rarely desperation. It's consistency, patience, discipline. The same qualities that create success for investors of any age. Why consistency matters more than timing. Many people believe investing success comes primarily from timing, buying at exactly the right moment, selling at exactly the right moment, predicting the future accurately. But real-world investing often tells a different story. The investors who succeed most consistently are not always the best predictors. They are often the most consistent participants. They continue investing through uncertainty, through market declines, through economic changes, through periods when progress feels slow. Consistency may not be exciting. It rarely generates headlines, but it creates momentum. And momentum matters. Linda eventually developed a simple habit. Every month, she invested. Not based on headlines, not based on predictions, simply because her plan called for it. Some months felt encouraging, others felt frustrating, but she continued, year after year. And over time, those individual decisions began creating something larger, a pattern, a habit, a system. Many investors spend enormous energy trying to find the perfect moment. Yet the perfect moment is often visible only in hindsight. Consistency, on the other hand, is available immediately. And that's one reason it remains so powerful.
The people who successfully started late. One of the most encouraging realities in personal finance is that successful investors come from many different starting points. Some began in their 20s, others started much later. And while their journeys look different, their outcomes are not always as different as people expect. Many late investors succeed because they stop focusing on what they missed most and start focusing on what remains possible. They become intentional. They create plans. They reduce unnecessary expenses. They increase savings where possible. They remain committed. Most importantly, they stop comparing themselves to people who started decades earlier. Comparison can be useful in small doses, but excessive comparison creates discouragement, and discouragement rarely improves financial outcomes. The people who successfully start late understand something important. The goal is not winning a race against someone else. The goal is improving their own future. That shift in mindset changes everything. Because once the competition disappears, progress becomes easier to appreciate. Small wins matter. Steady improvement matters. Consistency matters. And over time, those factors often become more important than people realize. It's not about beating the clock. As we approach the end of this conversation, it's worth asking a deeper question. Why does starting late feel so uncomfortable? Part of the answer is obvious. We know time matters. We know earlier is better. We know opportunities were missed. But another reason is psychological. People often treat investing like a race against the clock, a race against other people, a race against an ideal version of themselves. And races create winners and losers. But investing is not a race, at least not in the way many people imagine. The purpose of investing is not to defeat someone else's timeline. The purpose is to improve your own future. If Linda spends her energy comparing herself to someone who started 30 years earlier, she will always feel behind. But if she compares her future to the alternative of doing nothing, the picture changes completely. Progress becomes visible. Possibility returns. Hope returns. And perhaps that's the most valuable thing investing can provide. Not just financial growth, but a sense of agency. A reminder that today's decisions still matter. That the future remains influenced by what we choose to do now. No one can control the past, but everyone retains some influence over what comes next. And that influence deserves attention. If you've ever felt behind financially, you're not alone. Many people carry that feeling, sometimes quietly, sometimes for years. They look back and see missed opportunities, mistakes, delays, decisions they wish they could change. And while those feelings are understandable, they can become heavy burdens. Because they keep attention fixed on a chapter that has already ended. The truth is that every investor has something they wish they had done differently. Started sooner, saved more, taken fewer risks, taken more risks, made better decisions, avoided mistakes. That is simply part of being human. No financial journey unfolds perfectly. No life unfolds perfectly. What matters is not whether the past was ideal. What matters is what happens next. Linda eventually stopped asking herself a question that had troubled her for years. What if I had started sooner? Instead, she began asking a different question. What can I still do with the time I have? And that question changed everything, because it shifted her attention from regret to possibility, from disappointment to action, from the past to the future. The future may not look exactly as you once imagined. Few futures do. But that doesn't mean it cannot be meaningful. It doesn't mean it cannot be secure. And it certainly doesn't mean it cannot improve. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. The goal is not beating the clock. The goal is making the most of the time that remains. And perhaps that's the most important lesson for any investor, regardless of age. It's never about when the journey should have begun. It's about what you choose to do today. Thank you for spending this time with me. And if these conversations help you think more calmly about money and retirement, I hope you'll join me again. Quiet wealth is built slowly and lived fully.
Quiet wealth. Calm finance. Better life.